Hey, I'm Sasha, and today we're talking about what does your first ancestral healing session look like? Quick note that I am trained by Dr. Daniel Four and the senior practitioners of ancestralmedicine.org. For more on the method I'm describing, you can check out Dr. Daniel Four's book, which I'm linking down below, as well as his online course. One of the special things about this healing modality is that it helps you to come into your own power to connect directly with your ancestors. It's true that I'll be the one guiding the session, but the purpose and the intent here is for you to come into a direct experience with your people. Okay, before we dive into the step-by-step, I want to talk a little bit about what ancestral healing is. Ancestral healing is the process of our ancestors becoming better in spirit. I hold that we are not separate from our ancestors, so as they heal, we also heal. It's also been my personal experience, as well as the experience of others who have done this work, that it can also create big shifts in your relationship to Earth, your purpose, your family, and so much more. Okay, so let's talk about this first session. This first session is a critical step in creating a safe and solid foundation for your ancestral healing journey. Before we begin relating directly with your ancestors, we're going to be observing how they are in spirit so that we can reestablish any boundaries that are needed and also decide on which lineage you want to focus on first. In terms of the step-by-step, pretty much right after the session begins, I'm going to open up with a prayer. I pray in the language of my mother's mothers and in English with my clients. The purpose of the prayer is threefold. Number one, I invoke my wise and well ancestors, my ancestors of place, helping spirits, protecting spirits, to resource this ritual space. Number two, I invite your wise and well ancestors, helping spirits, protecting spirits, to also come into the space. And then I ask that our people work together to create a supportive, protective container where you are well met and resourced to do this work. After the prayer, I'm going to ask you, what's your best sense of where on earth your people are from? And it's totally okay if you don't know the answer to that question or you're not sure. After that, I'm going to ask about your family. So I'm going to ask if your grandparents or your parents are still living. And then I'm going to ask about any other family, like siblings, a partner, or children. Finally, I'll ask you if there's anything that feels important to say about your ancestors or ancestral healing. Next, I'm going to lead you into a dropped-in space. After presencing yourself, I'm going to ask you to call on a power that you already know and trust. This could be a deity or a figure from your faith, or you could also call on your connection to the earth, unconditional love, the mother archetype, really any power that you're already familiar with that feels good to resource you in the work that you're about to do. With that power, we're going to clear your space and create a circle of protection. Afterwards, I'm going to guide you through observing your 4 primary lineages. And by 4 primary lineages, I mean your mother's mother, your mother's father, your father's father, and your father's mother. It's important to note that we are not relating with them at this moment. We are simply observing. I like to describe it as a one-way mirror where you can see out to them, but they cannot see you. While you're observing them, I'm going to ask you some questions like, how do they seem in spirit? What are you noticing about them? If it's helpful, you can also use a numeric system where if you score them 1 to 3, it means that they're quite troubled. 4 through 6 means that they're doing okay. And then 7 plus means that they're quite healed. After your initial impression, I'm going to ask you to go back in time on this lineage. Let's call it 5 to 10 generations. So a few hundred years ago, how do those ancestors on this lineage feel? And then once you have your impression of them, then I'm going to ask you to go much farther back. How do the much, much older ones in spirit feel? The reason why it's important to make this distinction is because even though our recent dead or the most recently deceased could appear quite troubled, you might notice that there's a different quality about your ancestors if you go a few hundred years back or even 1,000 or more years back. Next, I'm going to guide you through assessing this lineage's impact on you, whether they've had a high, medium, or low impact, and then whether or not that impact has been helpful or not so helpful. After observing each lineage, we're going to pause and reestablish any boundaries that you need with them. Once we've worked through each lineage with your trusted power, you can decide which lineage you want to focus on first. It's typically recommended to go with the lineage that is the most well in spirit. The logic here is that once that lineage becomes fully healed and online, they can help you to resource the other lineages that might have more trouble. The next step, which is step 2, is going to be connecting directly with the ancestral guide on the lineage you've chosen to work on first. And that is where a lot of the fun and the juicy connection with your ancestors begins. I hope that was helpful. Please drop any questions that you have in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing, and I will see you in the next video.